Hey y'all, welcome to the Obsidian Theatre Festival Sister Cities program. My name is Alexa Sims.
What up, family? My name is John Sloan, and we are so thrilled to have you here. The Obsidian Theatre Festival is a new and exciting celebration of emerging Black theatrical voices.
And our Sister Cities program is geared towards youth like yourself from across the country, providing equitable access to tools and resources from professionals.
Our goal is to make sure that you can understand how to grow a career in the performing arts. And to that end, we're providing an original slate of educational content every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, wrapping up with our feature festival, March 25th through the 27th.
For more details about our programming, as well as our featured festival content, please visit our website, www.obsidianfest.org, for more information, dates, times, and details.
And welcome to the Obsidian Theatre Festival's Sister Cities program.
We look forward to you tuning in and having you as part of the fam.
That was it.
What we're gonna do is just get through the logistics first, but it's just scheduling. What is best for everybody? Schedule night rehearsals, day rehearsals, you know. Oh my God, well, God bless you, because I know it's a lot in college. You know, I told y'all yesterday, but I work with a lot of college students, and just them navigating everything, especially with the way school is right now, virtual, has been, you know, mind blowing. And I admire all of you juggling it, because it's a lot. It's a lot. So we got you. We're gonna take care of you in this rehearsal.
Thank you.
And don't be stressed, you know, it's going to be great. So I wanted to just talk before we jump in, because I hate when you're not warm and then somebody's like, get up and act, you know. You're like, can I have a quick second? Right. Can we just get into the frame of what we're doing? So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your character.
Okay.
If you thought anything about her, about Sunday, what her story is outside of what is given to us, you know, because obviously she's raised in this Christian environment, you know, that comes with its own set of expectations and standards for her. But what are her expectations and standards for herself?
I feel like Sunday is, I'll say so I can get in my headspace. Mm-hmm. I think that I want to talk a little bit about religion first, even though I know that's given to us, but just how I process that. I think it's more so. I think it's like you were talking about yesterday, a fear tactic. That's kind of what stuck with me and resonated with me most, was that specifically that Leviticus quote is enshrouded by fear, anxiety, and that I imagine that anytime he would hit her or berate her verbally, that quote was somehow involved, that he would either say it or just kind of like a replaying in her mind. So that trauma is just like kind of always there. It's just anything surrounding God is just kind of bringing up all of the negativity. Other than that, I think that she's a lot of her trying to keep it put together and trying to be kind of like this perfect daughter, this perfectionist. Like she's good at school, she's good at, I think she's super involved. And I think she's just trying to make herself as perfect as she possibly can to make up for her interior self.
Absolutely.
And I think she just feels dirty. So she's like, if I can appear on the outside as this perfect, clean person, it'll make up for all of the filthiness I feel within me.
Dead on. I 100% agree with that. I 100% agree with the fact of her using this scripture, or him using this scripture as a weapon, you know? And I love how you're saying, just if I can only be perfect on the outside, you know, it'll make up for what's on the inside of who I really am. And I think a lot of people feel like that. So that's like, that sums her up so perfectly. So we're keeping these things in mind. How do you?
When I was 8 years old, I dressed up the way I wanted to for the first time. He beat me. His fists felt like stones. When I was 10, I was playing quiet and low in my room. My 2 mommy dolls kissed. I had no dolls after that. I had Jesus. I had the book. See, I never had to come out. God made me a dyke. We both knew, but he couldn't accept it. One night he came home from work early, caught me with my first girlfriend, Juanita. He ran out of the house. I left before he came back. I never really enjoyed my life, but in that moment, I wanted to keep it. I slept on the subway for 87 days. I ran into my first grade math teacher. I told her what happened, and she took me in. Life for once was finally worth living. I saw that despite all the ugly in the world, kindness lives on. I had a room that I felt comfortable breathing in.
So those are things to keep in mind. I think you're spot on with Sunday. I absolutely agree with your direction of her. And there's more to unpack and uncover, obviously, but like that's a really great start, really great basis to her. Is there anything else? Maybe there's things that I want you to keep to yourself that I don't need to know. It's
Okay.
all your own internal work. But is there anything else you'd like to share about her that would possibly inform your choices? Just something you could share with me, just as, you know, how I can help you in discovering certain things.
Yeah, I was really looking into this Bible quote because I also believe in God. So this is all super interesting to me as a person and as an actor. So I read Leviticus 20, and her saying his fists feeling like stones really stuck out to me. And I was like, okay, like this is an interesting metaphor or simile. But realizing that she feels like she deserves to be stoned, really in like the biblical context.
Absolutely.
And that just brought it way deeper for me than I was even processing in my head, of like just feeling that worthy of shame. Like you have to do something so awful. Like all the people who were stoned did, for the most part, truly awful things. Or crimes. So it was just like, wow, for her to feel that level of disdain and disgust with herself.
Yeah. And the fact that in other countries, women are still dealing with this, you know?
Welcome to the Obsidian Theatre Festival's Sister Cities programming. We are so excited that you are here with us. My name is Alexis Sims, and I am the Associate Artistic Director on the Sister Cities program in the Obsidian Theatre Festival. And we have a really exciting program lined up for you all today. First up is going to be with our playwright, Phanesia Pharel, who is the author and playwright of Black Women Are the Moon. So Phanesia Pharel is a Haitian American playwright who is currently focusing on the divine metaphysical dilemma of Black and Latinx girlhood. Her play, And Other Dreams We Had, was a finalist for the City Theater National Short Playwriting Award and was selected for Smith and Krauss Best Plays of 2020. She attends Barnard College of Columbia University, where she recently won the Brant Playwriting Award and the Helen Prince Memorial Prize for Excellence in Dramatic Composition. She is currently an artist in residence for New York Stage and Film, as well as a 2020 National Young Playwright Residency for the Echo Theater Company of Los Angeles. She is also a proud member of the Dramatists Theater Guild. For those of you tuning in and watching, hello, Phanesia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. How are you doing today?
I'm okay. I'm really excited for this interview. It's like it's the highlight of my of my week. I'm really
Oh man, well, we're so grateful that you submitted to the Obsidian Theatre Festival and allowed us to show an excerpt of your piece. So for those of you who are tuning in or watching live, or perhaps watching the recorded version on YouTube or Facebook, Black Women Are the Moon is a 4-woman play. And Vanessa, we're going to get to you talking about that for sure. We're kind of introducing the 4 women in short excerpts from the piece over the next 4 weeks, culminating in a final performance. So first, to get started off, hi. Can you talk a little bit, Phanesia, for everyone who's tuning in, just about how did you get started writing?
So it's really interesting because for me it's like I often take things literally when people speak to me. So I'm like, oh well, I first started writing at this moment. But I do think that I was like looking through my email because I was trying to find. I've had the same email for over for basically 12 years now, and I used to like email myself things, and I was trying to like find things because Cam reached out to me about like a reel, and I was like, oh, let me see if I and I found this monologue that I wrote when I was like 11 years old, and I didn't know that I wrote. Like I if you asked me, I would say when I was like 15. So I think that I was always a bit of a writer, but I kind of resisted it.
Yeah.
I just was like, oh, well, I want to be an actor. I want to be on stage. I want to, I'm really into astrology, and I'm a Mercury and Leo. So, of course, I want to be like everybody, but now I'm a lot more like calm, and I really enjoy writing. I first got the opportunity to write. I think it's my experience with writing is an example of like having someone give you permission to do so and then doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Performance and other aspects of theater, nobody gave me permission to do it, and I wish that I could say that I'm the type of person where it's like I'll always be consistent with things that I don't get permission for.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people, that's not necessarily the case. We're human beings, we do need validation.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be concise, I was offered through my teacher because Tina Fey, I was really into comedy and stuff. In high school, she advised that women learn how to write in order to be able to write for themselves and to be better performers. And so I started writing like comedy, Sarah Silverman style. I would write like really weird songs. And my drama teacher, I was like, hey, there's this theater company in Miami. They're taking high schoolers, maybe submit some of your writing. And I didn't really know people. I keep in mind, I read plays, I performed in plays. Like I was a theater kid in high school, but it didn't like register to me that I could write plays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, it was weird. I went to this event thinking it was like a screenwriting, and then it was a bunch of kids from the bougier side of Miami. I had to take like a 2.5 hour public transit route to get there. I felt like I didn't belong in the room at all. And that's the organization. Like I felt like I didn't belong at that organization, City Theater. But City Theater, they actually showed me through their practices that I did. Like, oh, I'm a Cancer, let me not get emotional. But they awarded that year a Haitian American Black woman, Frances Benson, with their National Playwriting Award. So my first introduction to playwriting, I saw a Black Haitian woman get an award for her writing and telling her experience about low-income Haitian Americans in Miami who owned a bakery and experienced violence. That was wild. I never thought that that was going to happen. And then, she came in and she taught us, and she didn't know this, but they let us like perform our little monologues that we wrote. And I wrote like a really weird monologue, and she was like, that was good. And she doesn't know this, but like her telling me that, I was like, oh, well, I can write then, like I then decided to like keep writing because I'm so sorry, I'm an emotional person. I decided to keep writing because somebody told me I could do it, that I was good at it. And so I kept going. I then wrote um a play for like the district competition, like Thespians, like they're such a great organization. And I then actually like it was about my own experience with public education, and it was wild, I think I put my all into it. It won first place at like the district, state, and then it was selected as 1 in 4 to be like in the nation for like a competition. It was incredible, and all teenagers should know about the program so they can submit. It was incredible.
What is the program called?
It's called let me just pull. I usually keep the play on my like still, but because they partnered with Concord Theatricals to publish your play after.
Amazing.
So it was incredible. It's the International Thespian Festival's Playworks program.
Mm.
I can totally type it in the chat for everybody. And after that experience, like I didn't really have a choice because everyone's like, well, you're the girl who writes plays and stuff. It was like, like, oh God, I was just like, okay. But I actually like, it wasn't just about the awards, like that all stuff is cool, but it was really about like having something that I wrote about my experience. And like I wrote it in my college application essay, but like, yeah, I got an award. Yeah, my play got published. But there was a Black girl at that festival when my play was read, and she ran into me and she started crying, and she was like, you said the things that I feel, and I never feel like people understand that." And she was just so emotional. She was like, "Thank you," and I was just like, "Oh my God!" Like, I was 16, and so I felt like, okay, well, like, I don't really know what I'm doing in terms of writing. I had no real training. I wasn't, like, I just read a lot of plays, and I followed like something that I'm going to say more about later. But after that experience, like seeing another Black woman be moved, like I couldn't go back, and that really informed my practice, and I kind of like really loved it. It was so much richer than there are actors who they're doing it from that reason. They're doing it from that place of I can move people.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was my experience with being a performer. I think that it was coming from a different place. Whereas writing comes from a real place of like whatever, when someone's coming from a place of love over fear, love over ego, like really trying to connect with people. Like I'm a bit of an introvert. I have like anxiety. I'm not the best, when it comes to connecting to people. I try my best, but like, my writing is a really big way for me to like talk to people without talking to them.
Yeah, of course.
And so, that's kind of why I love it and how I got into it.
I mean, I have to say that, when we were sorting through all of the submissions for the festival and we read your piece, Black Women Are the Moon, we were just really struck by the honesty of it. And we definitely saw, for colored girls in there, in the structure. And it's actually great that, and I'll say this again, but that you brought up that you actually started in a monologue competition and that someone said, write a monologue, because what we are doing with the Sister Cities program is that all the people who are tuning in, I mean, they're students of all ages, but the Sister Cities program was really geared towards high school and college students and providing them equitable access to tools and resources to really get behind the scenes look at the process and also hear from people like yourself that are like them so that, they're seeing themselves represented very much in the same way that you had that same experience, and using your piece to actually give the same challenge that was given to you to everyone who is tuning in or watching later on, the challenge of writing a monologue of their own and performing it just as you did, and that, you know, select pieces will be featured in the festival proper. So it's such a, what is the word? It's not fortuitous, serendipitous.
Anytime someone says it, I get goosebumps.
Yeah, so it's amazing. It's definitely not an accident that you are here with me today. Can you tell us, so when did you start working on Black Women Are the Moon, and what inspired you to write it?
So, two things. My last thespian festival, we would go to the state thespian festival every year. We would sell muffins like crazy to go. It was so much fun, and all these different troupes and high schoolers would put on plays, and I saw that like For Colored Girls was going to be performed. And I like saw the advertisement for the Tyler Perry movie when it came out, but I hadn't read the play. I hadn't encountered it. My mom though was like, "Oh, my mom met Ntozake Shange in college," and it's crazy because I've met Ntozake Shange during my college experience. So it's like a weird like circle thing.
Yeah.
But my mom met her, and so my mom was like, "Oh, this is gonna be a great movie," and I always remember that. Like, my mom and I would go to the movies a lot. I always remember that moment of her saying that to me, and I remember the commercial and just being so happy to see Black women on the screen. And so there were two plays happening, and my entire theater troupe wanted to go see the other play, but I was like, "No, I'm gonna go see For Colored Girls. Anyone want to come with me?" No one wanted to come. Like, they're all like, "Anyway, deuces." I was
Right.
like, "Okay, well, I really want to go," so I went by myself, and it was four Black girls from like North Miami, which is one of my favorite areas. I used to be there a lot when I was a kid, and they or more than four. I can't all the colors, but granted, it was four Black girls, and they performed it, and it was the most beautiful. I've seen it professionally. I've seen it in so many different ways. There's nothing like seeing young women take on that piece, because I think they're coming from a place of like, this is freeing me from something because I can't talk about this right now. This is where I am right now. And it was just the most remarkable experience, and I wanted to recreate that. And the truth is, I'm sorry, I don't believe anyone will ever be able to recreate For Colored Girls. It's a masterpiece. It's like Romeo and Juliet. Like, no one's gonna ever recreate it, which is fine. Everyone has their own masterpiece. But that year, coincidentally, I was processing a classmate of mine passing away. Her name is Narisha Talbert. I have a link for her mother's story because her mother is a really wonderful advocate against gun violence. She was killed in an instance of gun violence. And I didn't know Narisha too well, so I don't want to say that I was like heartbroken. It was definitely weird and traumatizing to watch someone that you went to school with just disappear into thin air. It was like my first time encountering like death like that.
Yeah.
But watching her friends, who were also Black girls, their senior year, have to mourn their friend and move on and just act like people were not holding them. They weren't being cared for warmly. They were just kind of like, "All right, let's go." And it felt like, the whole thing of when violence happens to women, particularly Black women, it's almost as if we deserve it, so people don't really regard our pain. That was the implication. And so that was kind of my entrance to the piece, and I tried to keep kind of my own distance from it, but I wanted to explore, and I think that's why it came from a place of truth. Is, it wasn't for anyone to see. It was really for me. I used to like late at night write it while I would sit in my room and stare at the moon, and that's kind of where I got it. And I would think about her, I would think about her friends, I would think about how I didn't know how to talk to them about it, and I thought about all these other instances of violence that Black women and girls experience.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I feel like exactly what you're talking about is why a lot of people turn to art as a means of expression, because they don't have the words or they don't necessarily have the support. And so it's a great outlet and a great tool to use. And unfortunately, gun violence is not a rarity in a lot of communities, and just violence in general and struggle in general. And, you know, as as a Black woman, like I think we just have this expectation that we're strong and that we're like super people and that we don't feel things as deeply or aren't as devastated by things. And I think that resilience is often sometimes mistaken for the absence of the feeling. And one of the things, there's so many things that I love about your piece. And I know that you have some other things in the works, and I want to talk about those as well. But, you know, you wrote this like letter to the reader, and there was a playlist at the end of the play. Like, here were some songs that I was listening to when I was writing this play, and that inspired me, and it made me feel seen. That was really amazing. And I remember listening to those, and even when we were having auditions, like sharing that with the women who came in so that they could get a sense of the world that you were creating. And I just remember you wrote at the end of the play, you know, like, thank you for taking the time to read this. I never thought anyone would. I really just wrote this for myself. And I think that's why it read as so truthful. And that's why all of the women feel so real, because they are. And you wrote from a place of, you seem to write from a place of just needing to get out what was inside. And it was just, it's really beautiful. So if you have not had a chance, for those of you tuning in live or watching us on Facebook or YouTube, in the recording on www.obsidianfest.org, there is actually, we will week by week be posting the recordings onto the page so that you can review and meet these women bit by bit before the final wrap on our last fifth week. So, okay. So Phanesia, can you, if you were, because there are a lot of like younger viewers, the Sister Cities program is, I guess, targeted or geared towards youth and creating a creative career pipeline where people can kind of see a trajectory, right? Like kind of how that one experience that you had as a young writer, and then you were like, oh, like, I'm good at this. And then you were Phanesia the writer. And then I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll be Phanesia the writer. For people who have, for young writers, is there any piece of advice that you would give young writers?
Two things, three things. Okay, I'll make them quick.
No, you don't have to.
Oh, okay. I feel back so like this. The first piece of writing advice that I got from like one of the quote unquote OGs of writing, Marcia Norman, who actually directed her play, and then I didn't know, I met her at that city theater event, and that's why I was like, oh, this is weird, like the fact that doesn't I don't believe in coincidences like that. I believe that, you know, there's always someone kind of like, I do believe in spirit guides and all that. But she gave three pieces of advice. She said, you know, if you want to be a really great writer, there's just three things you have to do. You have to make theater. So it doesn't mean you have to, it can be your plays, but it could be other people's plays. You can direct them, you can act in them, you can be the stage manager, but you have to be in the process. Like, be in process as much as possible. Read plays, like just read them, you know, as much as you can. I try to read as many plays like that summer. I think I read like 50 plays. Like I like theater. And so I'm a bit of a nerd.
Just a little bit. You just like it slightly.
Yeah, and I'm also like, when I get into something, I go like like that. So I recommend reading as much theater as you can, but you know, you can be selective. It doesn't, don't, I wouldn't read, if I read something in 30, but reading bad plays is helpful too. But excuse me, I should say bad plays, but plays that do not resonate with you, because there are some people who are considered greats, and I'm like, not resonating. You know, resonates with white supremacy, doesn't resonate with me.
That's real.
It's interesting. And I would say, like, Right, like write theater. It doesn't have to be for anybody. It can be for yourself. Tennessee Williams wrote so many. He's one of my favorite writers, and he wrote a lot of plays that like people didn't see until he passed away. And it's a whole thing about whether that's invasive, but you know, the pieces you show the world don't have to be the pieces um, that all the pieces that you write. So write as much as possible. Write for yourself. Um, and then I would say, you know, there's so much room for people. I don't think it's helpful to get into a competitive mindset or competitive space. I think supporting other people is really important. You know, I I I send opportunities to my friends, or I try to mentor people if I can, or if I do stuff like that, because I think that when you have that mindset, more will come to you, more opportunities will come if you really don't feel like if, you know, if you're like on edge, like I think coming from a place of love, not just with the people you interact with and your writing itself, but with yourself, being gentle with yourself is really important, because I think more so than any other time, artists living in America right now are very much in a violent relationship with the systems of capitalism.
Mm.
And so it's really important to be aware that you don't have to um, there were times where it's like an actor could just live in their town, be an actor, be a part of their theater, and not feel this pressure to achieve certain things or to do certain things, or a writer to achieve certain things, to do certain things. So, you know, I think that if you love to write and you are feeling pressure to be a different type of writer, or you're feeling pressure to make a certain amount of money or do certain things, like please remove that from yourself and interrogate whether or not you're harming yourself by stressing out about things that aren't real, you know?
Yeah. So you talked about reading things that were a part of, you know, white supremacist culture, and so I'm curious, and also, you know, being a Haitian American woman, a Haitian American playwright, what does Black art mean to you? Why is it important? Um, and especially as a young woman, because you're still in school, right? What year are you in
I'll
school?
be free. Just 3 months and I will be free from the shackles of this institution. Yeah. So I'm out the door. I'm a senior. Bye.
Yay, congratulations. You're almost there.
Whew, pushing through.
But how amazing that, you know, you're a senior in college and your work is being, first of all, you've done all of the amazing things you've done from your bio. And also that, you know, your work is being used in a festival to reach out to youth, which seems to be very much, from the conversations you and I have had in the past, seems to be very much a part of your own mission. And kind of lending your voice to speak to these youth directly so that they see themselves, as I said before, in you. So I guess, what does the opportunity, or what is Black art? Why do you feel like it's important to have festivals like this and to have programs like this? And just why is Black art important in general?
Well, Black art is awesome. I just love it. You know, I think Black specifically. You know, my mother raised me, you know, with the consciousness of like, hey, like we're immigrants, and so there are certain things we didn't experience in this country. Yeah, we had our own stuff back home, but you know, the Black people of America, African Americans, there were certain things that happen here that you have to honor and respect. So my mother raised me with like, you know, because my mother is so passionate about Black people, with um, a respect for African Americans that I don't think is necessarily, sadly, indicative of all Black immigrants, like to be just completely honest. So I don't know. I grew up like I've never read a Jane Austen novel, but I grew up reading, like, because my mom, I would sneak into my I've read a lot, you know. I would sneak into my mom's library and read. I'd read Dante Cat and like all the Black women writers I could get my hands on, and that's all my mom would have. You know, my mom's like into Black writers, so I would Black women writers specifically. So I don't know. I just love Black art. I don't really, you know, I think it's just the way that people think it's beautiful when an Italian woman speaks. I think it's beautiful when a Black woman living in New Orleans speaks too. You know, I think that we have a beauty, and because of white supremacy, we just like undermine those things. But I think that like what's really cool about Black art and culture is that we are archiving a very particular culture that is, not necessarily like, guaranteed to stay. It's like I'm really oddly into like Pompeii. Like whenever articles come out about it, I get excited. And I think it's really cool that whatever happens in history and time, our people, because of artists, were archived in all of these multifaceted ways. Our flaws, our beauty, our pain, our triumphs. I love Susan Lloyd Park's quote, Black people are just fallen on hard times. Like what we're going through, this experience with white supremacy is not indicative of Black people in our wholeness and all of our history. So I think that there's a lot that I'm still learning about Black art, and I'm really excited to learn.
And you're a part of it. You're a part of the creation of it, which is so cool. Okay, so with that being said, Phanesia, what are you working on now?
This degree. Working on me. I'm like, this degree is working on me because child. Just working on my thesis, which is actually a creative project that I'm still ironing out. I'm getting into like screenwriting, so I'm writing a pilot. I have an idea for a mini series I want to create. I have a play that I think that every year I kind of do an inventory of like how I'm feeling about my writing. And I think there's a pressure, and this is what I was pointing to in the capitalist element, where a lot of opportunities, the Obsidian Theatre Festival isn't one of them, but a lot of opportunities are like, send us a new play every year so you can get considered for this money that you need to survive. And that's not necessarily the best for artists, because this year I don't need to write a new play. This year I feel like I need to read and I need to submit. And I think that's another piece of advice is I would say, like, know what you actually need to do and not what the world is telling you to do. That's really what I was trying to say. So I want to read. I want to read this year. I want to submit. And my last thing, I took notes before the meeting. I went through the questions. I have a commission. I'm writing a play for Thronestone Theater in Connecticut. Shout out to Thronestone. I'm working on that too.
That's so exciting. Can you talk about that at all, or is it top secret? We have to just wait and see.
Not top secret at all. They talked about it. I'm still writing the play, and it's going to be site specific. They're going to have outdoors. It's going to be really cool. It's going to take place in August. I'm working with a really incredible director named Khulud, and two other great writers, Catherine Yu and Tony Meneses. It's a predominantly white neighborhood, and the artistic directors were really passionate about bringing artists of color and supporting them and telling stories for their community. I think that's really cool. So I'm really excited.
That's so exciting. Okay, so you have so many things in the works. You know where you're at. Seems like you have a good sense of self and how to navigate the now. Do you have any ideas of what you'd like to work on in the future? Do you ever allow yourself to dream big?
Libra moon, absolutely. I'm like so into astrology. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I would like to there are some mini dreams. I would love to adapt Breath, Eyes, Memory into a movie one day. That's a book by Edwidge Danticat that changed my life and taught me so much about my mother, which was interesting because it's just a Haitian woman writing. I would like to see my plays. What's really crazy is I've done all these things, and because of Zoom, I've been able to see more of my work. But I've never had, other than the commission, I have never actually had a professional production of my plays. So I think that would be the next step, hopefully.
Listen, Phanesia, we're looking for plays. So I know that you sent me, your other play that you're working on, Black Girl Joy. So let's keep in touch, because I know that one of our goals is to support emerging artists. It's the goal of the festival, and we want to continue that throughout the years, plural. Just going to manifest that. And I know that we're going to be looking for work. So I can't wait till we have a breath, like a moment to actually, dive into your play. And I know that you are really proud of that piece. And, we talked about that before. So look at the universe. We're just manifesting things.
She's 10 steps ahead. I just pandemic and domestic violence. And so I think it's important to like it's something that I didn't have the words for at the time, I think, when I wrote it, but seeing us as like for full human beings, people with dreams, right? These women are talking about their dreams, what they liked, what they missed. And I think it's important. I think it's important for non-women to remember that we're not just the women you see on porn. We're not just the bodies you see on Instagram or the mother who cooks for you. Like, we have experience. You don't know what your mother's experience, you don't know your grandmother's experience. Like, these things are real. And so be gentle and kind is what I would say. There's a lot I would say, so I'm sorry if that was jambled, but that was what I was sitting with for a while.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, I guess the next question is for those who are female identifying, for those with she, her pronouns, what is something that you would like them to take away? Just for she, her. So across the spectrum, right? Because, people who are watching, who are hearing from you and hearing your voice, they may not be Haitian American, they may not be Black women, they may not be Black men. We're open to everyone. This is an open and welcoming space. So what is something that you would want female identifying audience members to take away?
I think that there's something that Cleopatra and says when she's talking about um, being left,
Mm.
about how she didn't want to always do the things that she did sexually. She didn't always want to, um, and I think that that's something that you can't blame yourself for, but you don't have to get love. That's the one thing about the piece. I could tell, I've moved away from that, but I could tell I was like heavily thinking about the way that I am in relation to men and how men see me and how men treat me. And now, I'm a little I'm a little older. I've had experiences. I've changed as a woman. Um, but you can get love and you deserve love outside of a man, and you don't always have to find that with a man. You can find that with your sisters. You can find that with yourself. And it doesn't mean that that's right. It doesn't mean that it's okay. And I don't mean to say that it's wrong for you to want love from a man if you want love from a man. But I think that it's better to get love from someone who can give it to you than to get it from someone who could hurt you.
Yeah. So then the other takeaway is then the love that we give to ourselves, that it's important that we nurture and care for self.
Yes, because then you'll know what real love is. It's not love to just have sex with someone and for them to not see you as a person. Because if they saw you as a person, there's a quote I really love. It's like, if the people we wouldn't need closure if the people were right for us. You don't need closure. They'd be able to give it to you. They'd be able to sit down and have a you wouldn't need to. You'll be able to see, like, oh, this isn't love.
Because you'll know what it is because you gave it to yourself.
Yes.
We are close to the end of our time. We're not there yet. I know that we had so many questions that we did not even touch on. And I just, Phanesia, where, if people want to hear more about you or from you, where can they get that information?
That's a really wonderful question. Say to read more of my work, New Play Exchange. I'm on there, and all my plays are up there. You can kind of read them. I'm on Instagram, and you will see a lot of cat content from my cat. But I do post about like what I'm working on with plays and stuff. I'm working on getting a website. Once I get this degree, I will make a website. So see Instagram, and eventually there will be a website link.
What's your handle on Instagram?
Oh, just my name, at Phanesia Pharel.
At Phanesia Pharel, and the spelling is Phanesia. Then is there an underscore or is it just straight?
It's just my name, yeah.
And then Pharel, Pharel. Pronounced like the singer, but not spelled like his.
I'm double checking because I think you can just type at Phanesia and it'll pop up.
Amazing. Yeah. That's so great. I'm just so excited that you're here. Okay, so to wrap up our time, I guess I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we'll go to be like, is there anything that you feel like we left out? What is something that each of your characters would want to say, but doesn't have a chance to?
I think Cleopatra would say that, you don't need to give someone your body for them to love you. I think North Star would say that you define beautiful and you can start with yourself. Like, we define what beauty means to us, so isn't it cool that we could start with ourselves?
Yeah.
Why am I forgetting the characters to my own play? Let me put
Sunday.
Oh, Sunday. I feel like Sunday is a character that I learned from. And so with her, I don't know if there's anything she wouldn't say. I want to say that maybe she would say that you know, you never know when you're going to go, so enjoy the time that you have.
Mm.
But she teaches me the more that I like read the play and interact with her. And then Sunday, Cleo,
Lauren.
Lauren. Um, Lauren is based off me and I roll. And I don't know. I think Lauren would tell you that relationships with other Black women are really important, and to nurture them, and to um, listen to Black women, and to hold the Black women in your life warmly, and don't just disregard them anytime something is difficult or when you feel confused or insecure or anxious.
So good. You're so good.
You're amazing. I love listening to your voice. You speak so like you're like the way you speak is like so amazing. I'm like, what? And then like you just have a very soft and beautiful voice.
Oh, that's so nice. I think I get that from my mom. My mom has a really soothing speaking voice. So if you're watching out there, Mom, I appreciate you.
Is she a Taurus by chance? I'm sorry.
Is there anything that we left out?
Oh, I didn't mention playwrights. Oh, I think I mentioned writers who influenced me. There's one that like came to mind. Terrell Alvin McCraney.
Mm-hmm.
I love him, and the brother sister plays like just opened an entire door of writing for me that didn't exist. I read them right before I wrote this too, and he's incredible.
Thank you, Phanesia, so much for being here today. For all of you who are tuning in live or watching us, the recording on YouTube or Facebook, thank you for joining us. This is Phanesia Pharel, playwright, fantastic Wonder Woman, author of Black Women Are the Moon, and more to come. If you are a high school or college student, we are encouraging you to write your own monologue based on the work that you're going to see behind the scenes from her play, and to record it and submit your monologues just as Phanesia did when she first started writing. Phanesia, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And good luck, everyone, with your monologues. I gave my Instagram. You can message me if you have any questions or anything that wasn't in this Q&A. And I really appreciate this opportunity, Alexis.
We appreciate you. All right, Phanesia, thank you. Have a great night.
Have a good night.
Bye. All right, everybody. Hello, welcome back to the Obsidian Theatre Festival Sister Cities program. Today is Thursday, February 18th, and we are kicking off part 1 of our Barriers to Entry series, Breaking In with New Work. We hope that you tuned in and saw Phanesia Pharel, who was with us earlier, and we are about to get to know Douglas Lyons and Daniel J. Watts. My name is Alexis Sims. I am the Associate Artistic Director for the festival, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. So we're going to get started off with a couple of bios about these two fantastic gentlemen. Douglas Lyons is an actor, writer, director, composer, and playwright. He's also the founder of the Next Wave Initiative, a scholarship program dedicated to supporting the future of Black theater artists. He has acted on Broadway in Beautiful in the original cast, as well as The Book of Mormon, and is the TV writer of Fraggle Rock on Apple TV. He's the playwright of Polka Dots, Off-Broadway Alliance winner, Best Family Show of the Atlantic Theater Company, and part of the duo Lyons and Pakchar. Our second guest, Daniel J. Watts, is a BFA graduate, of Elon University's musical theater program. Daniel J. Watts is a 2020 Tony Award nominee and Outer Critics Circle Award winner for his portrayal of Ike Turner in the hit Broadway musical Tina. He's appeared in 9 Broadway shows, including Hamilton, Memphis, and After Midnight, to name a few. His TV credits include season 3 of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, seasons 1 and 2 of The Last OG, Blind Spot, Vinyl, Boardwalk Empire, The Night Off, Bloods, The Good Wife, and Broad City. Off-Broadway, he has starred as the title character in Susan Laurie Parks' Death of the Last Black Man in the Entire World, aka The Negro Book of the Dead, at the Signature Theater, and Whirl Inside a Loop, at Second Stage. He's also the creator of an original work called The Jam. So with that, gentlemen, I want to welcome you to the stage. Hello, hello, Douglas.
Hello,
Daniel.
hello.
You
What's up,
handsome
friends?
gentlemen. Hi.
What's going on, friends?
How you doing?
Good to see y'all. What's up?
It is so great to see both of you, new and old faces from my life. Thank you both so much for being a part of the Obsidian Theatre Festival Sister Cities program. I know that everybody who is tuning in now live and who will be watching the recorded versions on YouTube and Facebook are like thrilled that you're here with us. I have some questions that are prepared, but can we first just do introductions? I did not do this with Phanesia, excuse me, and I apologize. So I'm Alexis, I'm she, her, hers. Shall we go alphabetically by last name?
Yes, that would be me. I had to think about it. I was like, L, that's me. Douglas Lyons, he, him.
Daniel J. Watts, he, him. I'm always last.
You're like, I don't ever have to guess. I just know I'm last.
I'm last.
So I just wanted to I know that I gave both of you all's amazing bios. You're stars. It's great. Can each of you guys talk a little bit about your background and how or why you feel drawn to the creation of new work? So let's start reverse alphabetically.
Oh, check me out. Never happens. Ask the question again, just so I know.
You weren't ready to go first.
I wasn't. I was ready for Douglas to give me the map.
Okay, so guys, we are live.
I know, I got it. Just ask it again. I heard it. Just ask it again.
Okay, so basically, I would love to get a sense of your childhood educational experiences, and kind of talking a little bit about your background and how and or why you feel drawn to the creation of new work. Got it.
Okay, great. So I essentially started theater around 13. It was my mom's idea. I wasn't really interested. I was like, I'm playing basketball, and and she noticed the energy and she suggested I audition for a play. And it was this play about this small neighborhood inside of Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm from Charlotte, outside of Charlotte, Indian Trail. I was born in Charlotte. But it was this neighborhood inside of Charlotte called Brooklyn. And it was called that because around the turn of the 20th century, a lot of Black people migrated from Brooklyn, New York, to this place in Charlotte. And it was really just a play about these people. And it was more so information than anything. It was more historical than anything. But I was really drawn to that because it was one of the first times I really heard about me, being in school. I didn't hear anything like this. I wasn't told these kinds of stories about just regular everyday life of Black people. And so that was my introduction to theater, really. So that's what theater was for me. So anything that wasn't really that was kind of like, huh, what is this? Where's the historical? I was looking for the real part of it. But I was bitten. That was the bug. Next thing I know, I was doing more theater and taking dance class, and then I wanted to go to school for theater. I went to Lyons University, studied musical theater there. This feels very long. Graduated, did the regional theater thing, met Alexis, we became besties, and then then New York was just where I was. But in the midst of all of that is what I'm going to say. In the midst of between bouncing around, doing the regional theater thing, and between shows, I was always compelled to kind of do my own thing. Like I felt like this is fun and this is paying the bills, but I have a story that I want to tell. I have stories that I want to tell, and I'm realizing the only way I can do that is if I do that. So that's always what's kind of driven me towards that kind of work. Is just there are stories that are being left out. There are perspectives that are being left out. I don't see myself often, I guess that's on me. If I want to see myself, then I need to put myself out there. So that kind of was the driving force behind it. Douglas, go.
Yeah, I mean, say something, but okay, go ahead, Douglas.
Let us go.
I'm from New Haven, Connecticut originally. Grew up singing in church and dancing in dancing school, but never had acting lessons until I was in college at the Hart School, University of Hartford. And I got the bug, I want to say when I was like 16, when the national tours of Rent and Cats came through New Haven, the Schubert Theater. Coincidentally, I would join that same Rent tour 3 years later as a swing. And there was something magical about what was on stage. I didn't understand it, but I knew there were voices and there were stories being told. And I didn't understand what the cats were saying, but I knew the cats were calling me. And so I was like, this is something's interesting about it. It's weird, but something's interesting about it. So I got, the bug then. And then the writing happened actually out of heartbreak to start. My parents got me a guitar for my 25th birthday, and I was like, I'm feeling a lot of things right now, and music became my healing. That's how I started writing. And then I met Ethan on the national tour of Book of Mormon, and he was the guitarist on the tour. And I was like, you write chords. I can't write anything. Let's collaborate. And that started that. And then when I had the same epiphany that there is power in the American theater when the pen is in your hand, and it gave me an opportunity to write for the beautiful people that I know are extremely talented but don't get opportunities because of the system. So while I was doing beautiful, I was literally finishing a number, going downstairs, getting on my computer for 45 minutes and writing my future. And in a weird way, I was not booking all the Broadway shows I was up for, but that was a blessing in disguise because it allowed me to have the padding of a Broadway production contract that ran, for 6 years while I was writing my future, and I didn't even know it. So I call it destiny, honestly. And now looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, this is purpose. And it allows us to tell so many stories at once. You don't have to be in the room every day once that story is up. And Polka Dots has been done over 60 times around the world now. It's like I can't keep track. And isn't that beautiful, right? And it's also a way to honor our folk with our pen. So that's why I'm into new work, because the old work is dipped in a lot of things that don't serve us.
Dipped.
Just the squint.
Dipped is a good word.
Dip. Haagen-Dazs dip.
Okay.
Okay, the tea, the sip. I love it.
I got it.
So, gentlemen, oh man, I feel very inspired right now. Just have to say that. Yeah, it's just amazing all that you guys have been able to do, and specifically as one of us breaking in with a new work that you're breaking in and having the successes that you've had. It's just one of the reasons that it was important to have both of you here is so that all the people, the Sister Cities program is geared towards youth and creating a creative career pipeline so that youth can see how they can feasibly become artists, that if they have something to say, they can be connected with a college program if they decide to go to college or go straight to New York, or you know what I'm saying, that there is a way for them to be a person that's creative and still have successes and have a life. And to see people who look like them who are doing that. So I'm just gushing because I'm so proud. I'm also just so inspired. So I'm just gonna go to the next question. So since you all are, and this is kind of interesting. So since you all are creators of new work and have also worked on established pieces, can you talk a little bit about how your process differs between the two? So when you're creating something new versus working on something that exists already. And then maybe this is something that early career, what was it like for you the first time you worked on a new piece? I guess, Dan, you kind of touched on that, Douglas, do you guys kind of get what I'm asking?
Yeah. I'll kick it off. I think from the acting perspective, understanding that, and writing on Fraggle Rock taught me it's really about the best idea in the room. It ain't about you. is never about you, boo. It's about the show and trying to get the best story told. So from the acting perspective, realizing where you fit into that puzzle piece and not being in your feelings about it, and not taking it personal, because the producers and the creatives on the other side of the table have a visibility of a product. You are a part of a product when you're an actor. And creating new work from the business mind that I have is understanding how I can stay true to my voice and infiltrate that system of product, but always staying authentic to what I want to say. And so being a part of that as an actor actually taught me a lot about just, what it is to invest, producing, right? Like creative team, conversation, the pressure, the long hours. There's a ton of behind the scene work that you don't see from the writing perspective, and it's why I'm so vocal on social media, because I think people think shows just pop up. They don't. They take a lot. There's a process, a lot of yeses and nos and rewrites, and a project right now we've rewritten 4 songs in COVID for that project. So I'm always very open about the process, because I think it's important for young folk to know, like, if you want to maybe be on the other side of the table, study the people. Like in tech, when you could be in your dressing room, sit like 2 rows behind the tech table and listen if they'll allow you. Learn what's going on, so you're not just showing up and signing in, that you're really educated on the workings of the business. Daniel?
What am I gonna say after that? No, yeah. I'll piggyback that and talk about that you kind of started going to is the clock. There's a difference in clock when you're on the creative side of it from the inception versus once the contracts are signed and it's like, we're putting this up in 6 weeks, right? It's like 6 weeks is it, that's what you're dealing with, versus all the time it took for this thing to cook, right? The process and having an idea. A lot of the work that I do with the Jam, a lot of times is me compiling things that I have done over time and seeing how they fit. So like something that I wrote 11 years ago now rings very, very differently and is synonymous with this thing that I wrote last week. So now I'm like, ooh, I can go get that. But that's been cooking for 11 years. It's been sitting on a shelf, not doing anything, but just marinating. And now I have I have purpose for it. So the clock, I understand the clock differently. There's not so much of a rush personally when I'm creating the work. Once contracts get in, once you start dealing with people and producers and all of that, then the clock starts. But having the time, and this is what I teach my students, is like, take the time to let it cook. Like don't try to, I'm not interested in, we write things like, I'm not interested in you turning in something. I don't care about your 35-page script that you wrote in 15 minutes versus if you gave me a scene that is steeped in thoughts and care and reality and is looking ahead while looking backwards. I care about that. I care about quality over quantity. So I think that's really what is one of the bigger things is if you have time with the process, if you've been with a workshop from the reading, the first table read, and then, then there's a lab and then whatever, you'll understand that process more than something that's been like happening for 10 years and you're the last piece to get put into that puzzle when it goes to Broadway and, you show up and do the gig. That's kind of like the main difference.
Yeah, I recently, like Douglas, I'm a big fan of like all of the songs that you have. I love all of the YouTube things that I've seen. Just a big fan. And Daniel, like obviously, because Jam. What? I recently watched, actually I was watching you, Douglas, before we got on, singing one of your songs, the first song of summer. And recently, Daniel, I was watching your piece about letting the paint dry and how that kind of goes. You're kind of talking about you're hitting on that subject now. Both of you have hit on it about how the process, how if you are a young person that's starting to write, to allow your process to be your process, to just begin the creation of, and how both of you didn't start out, it doesn't sound like, you weren't always writing as a kid. Like you came to it. So Douglas, excuse me, pardon me, you were writing as a kid?
No, I'm agreeing with you. I did not write as a kid. Like
Yeah.
it picked us. Yeah.
Yeah, it like came to you later on from living your life and having your experiences and then finding an outlet, which is different than the young woman who was on right before you all, who was in her senior year of college, and she started writing when she was like 13 or 14.
Right. Well, that's when I started. I was writing, but I wasn't writing for creative purposes. I was writing for outlet purposes. You know.
Can you talk about that? Can both of you talk about the differences between, or when you started writing for outlet purposes, how was that useful, and is that useful in your creative process now?
Yeah, I think whatever you're doing, like Jay-Z Jay-Z never thought he could be a rapper because it was fun. He's like, this isn't working. This is what he was just doing it anyway, but every day him and his homies would hang out and then he'd go home and write a rap about what they did. And then the next day he would like spit it back to him. But he was doing that every day. So he's developing craft, not trying to it's just what he was doing. So the next thing he knew, he had all this material. He had all this craft. And that was the same thing with me. I was just writing because I felt some kind of way. And, I was in sports and stuff, but I realized that wasn't enough of the outlet. I needed to like put something down, and then I felt better. And it was over time I realized like, oh, I mean, Alexis, when we met, like I was writing, I just wasn't doing anything with it. It was just, oh, I wrote this. Here's another thing I wrote. But after a while, after being in New York for it, at that point, the first jam I did was 11. So I had been here 5 years. After being here 5 years, I realized I had accumulated all this stuff, phone full of stuff, laptop full of stuff that I wasn't doing with. And then I could look back on what I had and go, oh, I can use this and use this and use that.
And I remember
that's how I got into it.
It was at a dance studio. It was at a dance studio.
What?
New dance group? Was that the studio? Your first what? The jam, the first jam.
It was it was called the Tank at the time. Now I think it's called 45th Street Theater, on the little theater on 45th Street, like going towards 9th, between 8th and 9th.
I feel like I saw
on
like
South Side Street.
Before you even were in a theater. It
That
was
was
like
Words.
studio.
Oh, no. You're right. You're right. Words, the first. So I did a thing with Derek Baskin, which was Words, which was like we had all these ideas of grandeur that we were gonna have like a 6-piece band and violins, and it was gonna be that, and then it ended up being he and I a cappella, and so we just called it Words, and we would just me doing spoken word and him singing songs, and then that's what was at the Tank, and then I don't remember you. I feel like you were there for that. You were there. But then the jam was at Lincoln Center in one of the dance studios at Lincoln Center. That is
the one I for sure saw.
Correct. Yep.
And I'm pretty sure I saw the other two. So also just like getting into, and I know that Douglas, you also were talking about how you started like swinging, you were dancing, singing, and then it has evolved into this. And I like when I met Daniel, we were both in the ensemble of Jelly's Last Jam, dancing. And so to see, the process of, taking tap and then adding spoken word onto it and then adding song, and it became this what is now, a huge thing, kind of how that just kind of tacking on, you have all this stuff, right? Like I have all these skills, these things that I can do. I'm going to make something from them. So Douglas, for you, what was I don't even remember the original question, to be totally honest. It's not written down.
It's all good. I think I got you. For me, so our first Lyons and Packjar gig, we were actually in Boston on the Mormon tour, and it was called Broadway Unlocked, and it was in Tribeca. And Michael Kilgore, Raina White sang 2 of our songs.
Oh my God, Raina?
Oh yeah, she's on our first album too.
She and I did Dreamgirls together at Michigan.
There you go.
Okay, here we go.
Bam. But I remember standing off to the side and sweating, pacing and sweating, because it felt like you were watching your baby walk for the first time. But I could see through, like behind one of the pillars, this guy's like foot tapping. And I was like, and that, if we can do that with our work, that's what I want to do. It's the same thing, when you're singing on stage and you see someone take a really deep breath or applaud, it's like, oh, but I can achieve the same, way of moving people, but with my own work. Oh, let's see what this is about. And then it felt like our music was giving BIPOC artists another canon to tap into. And when I realized that too, I was like, oh, and then I also realized there's some money to be made from this thing. Oh, you mean you gonna pay me to write music? And it was fun. Like, it was, the stress that I get from like auditions and stuff and preparation, I don't get that with music. I'm like, okay, what's the song about? What we got to do? Cool. You know, it's actually, and every project is new. It's not 8 shows a week. It's always changing. You're never going to write the same song twice. So, yeah, that's part of what my allure was to the writing game.
So based off of that, I remember watching Michael Kilgore sing Crush and flipping my, there's children watching.
Yes, got it.
I was like, it was on repeat. Then I found it was on Spotify. And then I was like, ooh, yes. Because, you know, he be singing, but also the song. And so I wanted, like, can you talk about how do you find your stories? I think that's the next kind of question, because that is very specific. Like all of the music I've heard you create, all of your lyrics, they tell very specific stories. And so I'm like, where does that come from? Do you wake up at 2 a.m. and are like bitten by a bug and you just get your pen out?
Well, funny enough, a lot of inspiration comes when I'm near or in the shower. That particular song came from a friend. I'm really vulnerable and great when I've been through a breakup. That's the best time to get. I'm gonna write some real good stuff. So I just gotten out of a relationship and I was staying on a friend's couch and I might have had a crush on, I had a crush, and that's where it started. Polka Dots was inspired from a Phanesia Rashad interview, when she talked about growing up in the Jim Crow South and tasting from a white-only water fountain. Bo was inspired from seeing a friend play Rockwood. Chicken and Biscuits was inspired from a family event where I was like, you didn't tell me that. Oh, we're going to write that down. We're going to make that into a story. So I take it from everywhere around me. I'm inspired by the thing. I watch a lot of documentaries and interviews. It's interesting to see people talk when they are like not on copy and they're just talking about their life. I feel like those are the tidbits that you like put, like someone's watching right now and probably gonna write something, and that's beautiful to me.
That is amazing. I was just thinking that. I was like right now, like somebody's watching you right now, and like that's really cool. And also that kind of ties into what you were talking about, Daniel. The first show that you did, you were like, well, where's the history? Like, where's my story in this? It's kind of a similar idea in a way. I mean, maybe that's a stretch, but where do you feel your creative moments come from when you decide what you're going to write about?
It's funny. Everything is like swirling together, because simply for me, everything is, I'm asking myself at all times, is this a poem? At all times, it's like, is this a poem? Walking down the street, is this a poem? It's just, and the question then turns into, am I going to keep writing this thought? Am I going to write this thought down, and am I going to keep riffing on it? Is really what it comes down to. I realize that I gravitate more towards nonfiction than fiction. Like I read poetry books and autobiographies. Like I don't really read a lot of fiction. I like documentaries, or I like movies that are about things that really happen. That's the kind of space I live in. So then and I'm like looking around my apartment because it's telling on me. It's just, my mom, kind of had me in very much, my mom put me around culture a lot. Like she made sure I knew, because I found myself in predominantly white spaces a lot. And my mom made sure, though I was in these spaces, that I still knew who I was or where I came from. Like I still knew about the Middle Passage, and I still knew about Jonathan Green. I knew about Black artists. My mom just kind of made sure that she didn't beat me over the head with it. She was kind of like, here you go. There's another option too. There's something else. Like I was thinking about my first monologue was Harlem by Langston Hughes. What Happens to a Dream Deferred? That was the first monologue I performed as an audition. It's just like, it's just always been rooted in some form of reality, more so than fiction. So it kind of just, because I just think real life is more interesting anyways. I think we're trying to like make up, we need to find a crazy story. It's like, have you looked out the window? know?
Exactly. Yep.
Like, you don't need to make anything up. Like, there was this woman, I mean, the homeless business right now is skyrocketing in Harlem. And there was a sort of a fight trying to break out amidst the people down there. But this one woman kept screaming out, "Where's my coffee? I had it." There's people arguing about something real, and she's like, "No, where's my?" And everything stopped while they helped her find her cup of coffee that she had placed on top of the fire hydrant. They're like, "It's right here." Okay, thank you, because I knew I had it. But yeah, and then they got right back to it. I'm like, I don't need to make nothing up. This is
Yep.
this is real life is much more interesting than trying to make it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I find a lot, I think people are creating fiction based on real life. I think people are taking conversations that they've had, things they've overheard, ear hustled at a coffee shop, and be like, "Oh, that's good." That is how it's happening.
Yeah. So can both of you, I guess, talk about? I feel like, in the songs, like for your songs, Douglas, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, how do you kind of transfer, since you are also similarly pulling from historical things, autobiographies, nonfiction? What is your process in creating a story, a fictional story, from that reality? So if someone is like a new writer, right? I've never written anything before, but like I have, like, my neighborhood is like alive, and I have all these characters, right? Like on my street, in my school. How do you take that, or can both of you kind of talk about how do you take what you're seeing? What's the process for thinking about how to turn it into something different?
I think I ask myself 3 questions now. What do I want to say? Who do I want to reach? And how can I be paid so I can do it again? That's like my standard now for work. And so because it's called show business, not called show, but we don't like to talk about the business part. But the show is shut down right now. So all that's left right now is the business. We can talk about that later. But when it comes to how you choose to say what you want to say, be intentional. No idea is a bad idea when you're starting. Write it all down. Like polka dots, I wrote down as an idea, and then I put it on a shelf for 5 months. And then I was like, I call them mosquito bites, like ideas that come to me, and I'm like, go. But if it keeps biting, I'm like, oh gosh, okay, I guess I gotta go through with this. So don't invalidate anything that comes to you, and don't be too hard on yourself in the beginning, but know why you want to write a thing. Not just a cool idea that could be really, and then the superpowers and the thing. That's great, but what is the heartbeat of the story you're trying to tell? Because in theater specifically, that's why people go and see it. That's why we cry, is our heart is feeling something overwhelming, and we're being pulled forward, right? So you want to find that thing that pulls you forward, and hopefully that will translate to other people. I would always start there. Like, I write from the heart. I didn't go, to a master's or undergrad program for writing at all. I don't have specific training in it, but I know how to write conversation, and I know how to listen, Daniel, as you were saying. And you take from that and you pull from that, and then you heighten it a little bit for the stage. But our stories are literally around us. There's so much to pull from. So write what your heart says. That's where I would start.
Thoughts, Daniel?
I'm gonna say the exact same thing he said in a different way.
Okay, great. But actually, so because we know that everybody hears things differently, right? So what's great about having multiple people on a panel where the basic tenets of how to create are the same, right? But the way that Douglas just explained it is going to be different than how you, as Daniel, is going to explain it, which different people are going to be able to hear what both of you are saying, which is why both of you are here, because your words and your explanations matter. So if you need to say the same thing again in your words, that is valid, Daniel J. Watts.
Thank you for acknowledging me, my process. I feel seen and heard. Thank you. Like those 3 things, I'm going to say it like this. Reveal. So what do you have to say? Reveal. So that you can be relatable, so that you can boost ratings. it's the same thing. You know, when we're talking about show business, like the why of the story is way more important than the glitz and the devices and all that stuff. Like what is the story? A lot of a lot of people fall in the pitfall of like, I got this idea and there's things and there's whistles and there's bells and it's, you know, it's extravagant and it's, you know, but what is the story, right? And then who is it for? Who are you talking to? And the answer honestly is you. You know, it's for you, and it's what you have to say, and it's how you feel about this. Like, it's really, I wish I could remember who said this quote. It was like, someone was like, I write because it tells me, I spun it and made it my own, but it's like, I write because I learn more about myself. Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, a lot of the unfolding of these stories are really just bits and pieces about, like, if it's a place, these are just different versions of myself in conversation. This is the more, you know, this is the more opinionated person who speaks their mind, saying something to the part of me that, you know, cowers and shelters when this person's around because I don't feel that my voice is as strong. And then this, you know, these are just different parts of us having different conversations. My mode starts in spoken word. It starts in poetry. So I let that lead because I think it is important to really honor how you express yourself best. I think a lot of times you get caught up in both convention and what you've seen before. Like, it has to be like what I've seen before. It's like, no, it has to be what is authentic to you, because the storytelling is going to be that much more powerful. Like, no one can do it like you. I don't want to hear that version of the story because I've heard that, you know, John Coltrane's My Favorite Things doesn't sound like the original Oscar Hammerstein version because it doesn't need to. We know that song. I want that's interesting. I have heard the song before, but I haven't heard it like that. So let me hear it like that, because we're all telling the same stories over and over again. That's not the problem. It's just, how do we make it fresh? You make it fresh. What is your version of this story?
Okay, so
and let me piggyback off that real quick.
Hit it.
And we are telling the same stories all over again, but many of those stories have not been heard through our voice.
Talk about it.
And that is the shift that's happening right now in spaces. Is like, I've learned during this pandemic, I am not apologizing for taking up space and for demanding to be treated like my counterparts. And you may think you have heard this story before, but you ain't heard it in my voice. And there's a difference there. And there's something beautiful for Black people to take our stories and say, you've heard the white perspective of this moment in time, but not ours. And it's time for ours. Like, right now. Like, this
right
second.
Now.
Yeah.
Like, now, but right now.
Yeah. So, yes.
Sorry, go ahead, Douglas.
No, that's it.
Okay, I have two things that I want. You perfectly transitioned. You didn't even know what you were doing, but you managed to perfectly transition into the next part. But before we go to the next part, I just want to identify, like, for someone who is listening, who maybe doesn't have the experience, like, you're both talking about what is the story, what is the heart, what is the thing that you're trying to say, as opposed to just like Sally walked down the block. So can we just quickly give an example of the difference between saying the truth from self, like from the heart, what is the heart that's going to also attract someone else because it's truth, and just some idea? Is it possible for us to just quickly give some examples? Maybe how something starts versus what the fleshed out version could be, maybe in something that you already have.
Sure.
Go first.
Sure. So I'll say something that I'm still working through, but I read Pele's autobiography. Pele is a soccer player from Brazil, is considered the greatest of all time, World Cups, most career goals. It was rags to riches. He had no money as a kid. He actually had no shoes as a kid. He didn't play in soccer cleats until he was 12, and then became the greatest soccer player of all time. Great. And I was like, that's a play. That's something. I'm going to write it. But that's all I was just thinking about was, like, you know, that story. And I asked Kent Gash. Kent Gash. I was like, this is the idea of the story I have. And he was like, great. So what's the story? What's it about? And I was like, it's about this man, his life. He was like, no. Why are you telling that story? And I was like, Because it's a great story. He didn't have no shoes, and then he became the greatest soccer player of all time. And he was black. I think, that's something to talk about. He's like, great, but what is the why are you telling the story? And it took it. I was frustrated first. I was very frustrated because I was expecting him to be on board with the idea, and he wasn't.
Brilliant, Daniel.
And yeah, that's what I was expecting, and I'm glad he didn't do that because I would have ended up going down a rabbit hole of probably more disappointment. And not even that, it probably would have gotten made and it would have been terrible. That's worse to me. Me personally. It would have gotten made and it'd have been bad and then da da da. But it took me a second to realize, so thinking about Pele's career and how I was attracted to it when I was attracted to it at the time, the Broadway show I was in that I left the Broadway show I was in before, in the Heights. I was like looking at my career like this, and I was like, I'm just gonna keep going. I was in Memphis. Memphis just won the Tony, and then I was like, I left Memphis and I went to go do In the Heights, and I got to In the Heights and was like, I'm gonna kick it here for a little bit and like start writing. I'm gonna make my project, and they were like, we're closing, and I was like, wait a minute, I don't close shows. I ain't gonna close no show. Wait a minute, and then I was like, okay, and then what am I gonna do? So then I went back to Memphis as a swing, but now I'm covering my original track, and then I was only there for 2 weeks, and then I left there to go do Aladdin out of town. Got to Aladdin, my part got cut while I was in rehearsal, and I was just like, what is happening? Like, it just felt like I was just like, I was like, what is going on? And then that's when I realized I was stuck. I felt as if I was stuck in a loop. And Pele was an individual who, he left school early and was playing soccer, but he kept putting his financial affairs in other people's hands, and twice he ended up bankrupt and having to go to other people to bail him out and give him different. He needed one contract would get torn up to sign a worse contract, and he was stuck. And I was like, but he was still playing soccer, and I was like, what happens when you become a slave to the thing that brought you freedom in the first place? Then I knew what the story was. Then I was like, okay, now it's not now. Okay, it's about slavery. It's about now I'm doing research about the slavery in Brazil that didn't end until 1888. And finding out that when the Confederacy lost here, the Emperor of Brazil invited the Confederacy, and 10,000 Confederate soldiers moved to Brazil to keep doing what they were fighting for in America. Stuff starts to cook. That's what I'm saying. When you start to know what it is and why you're doing it. Now and then only to find out. So it's not about being a slave to the thing. It's also, while you are a quote unquote, while you are enslaved to something, where is the freedom in there? So like that is an example of, for me, of like, there was this idea that I had, and then I had to realize why I was telling it is because I was feeling like I was enslaved in this person's life. I felt some kind of kinship to it, and I wanted to help tell that story in a very interesting, fun way.
Yeah, great analogy. Douglas?
All of that. That's beautiful. But like that's the opportunity for inspiration, right? You see something, I would call that a mosquito bite. You don't know why your spirit is identifying with it or connecting with it, and then you realize, for me, it is often, I now have a commitment with my pen to amplify Black women in the American theater. I am tired of seeing them have to hyperventilate and be oppressed center stage in a spotlight to be in a production contract. And I think what's very important in this conversation, and I'm just gonna put this out there, I think we have to understand, though our stories make it to a certain level, what is the gaze in which they will be appreciated? Because making it up there, if it ain't for us, doesn't really benefit us anyway. It benefits the pockets of the people who go, oh, look at that. Look at, see, look at her. She hit that high note. She's up there, right? But is it serving us here? Is it feeding us? And many times it's not. And so my inspiration and the why is, I want to write my auntie, my grandma, my mother, my uncle. I want to put them in the American theater canon. So when I'm gone, there's a selection of options for Black actors to go, yes, yes, because August Wilson did that for us, and
Mhm.
he's just now really getting his due in the way that he deserves, and it ain't necessarily from the theater, right? It's happening more in Hollywood. So I'm always trying to heal. Like Chicken and Biscuits is a story of drama, and you may see characters you have seen before, but have you ever seen them heal like that in theater? So that's sort of my thing is amplifying the people that I was brought up with and giving them space to be as messy and as wild as every other white character we've seen, because we're not usually allowed that, right?
And
But
to
white,
still be
but
people. And to still be like fully rounded human beings.
yeah, yeah,
Fully fledged out,
yeah.
realized individuals.
We're not features. We don't pop up in life. We exist. We breathe. We have pain, but we don't only have pain. We have joy. We got a lot of joy. And so that is my fuel. And I feel like I can accomplish a lot more of that work as a writer than I would ever be allowed as an actor.
Which brings me to a question, which is the importance. You guys have already kind of talked about it, but my next question was going to be the importance of Black art, and how would you define Black art and Black theater?
I'm gonna say this. I think that's a trick question.
Yep.
Great.
Because
I'm
we
so
are
glad
not.
you said that, because we are not a monolith.
We are not a monolith.
You can't define us.
Yeah. We and I had to learn this during COVID. You know, Daniel, your childhood is different than mine. Like my mother was raised in North Carolina and she was the first to integrate of her siblings,
Wow.
right? But I
Yeah.
was raised in New Haven, Connecticut. So I didn't really get hit with racism until college because that just wasn't tolerated. Like people would be called out and punished,
Mhm.
right? But there were some people that grew up being called out of their name every day.
Mhm.
And so if that person wrote a play and I wrote a play, they're going to be two different experiences, but they both should take up space.
Mhm.
And
It's
should
like,
be they should both be allowed to be Black narratives.
just like how, you know, your mother is from North Carolina. You grew up in New Haven. Daniel, you're from North Carolina. I grew up in Alabama. So Southern, right? Like Southern roots, but totally different experiences because I'm a woman, because of where the town that I grew up in Alabama at the time. So we're all, yeah, I asked you a question, then I started to answer it. Apologies.
No, that's great.
I got
Well, I mean,
excited.
it's the same as like, you can live in the same household and have totally different perspectives sitting at the dining room table. Like, it's we've been forced to try to, you know, we've been trying to, because we've been so separated and divided, we're trying to find places in which we, and then
Assimilate.
and then also in doing that, this is the word, and also in doing that, it forces us to try to say what is us,
Yep.
And because we haven't had the benefit to actually be different, 10 different things, so it's a combination of us both trying to stay together while also looking at it on the micro level and go, none of us are, we all walk very, very different paths, just simply being human beings.
Yep.
So Black, if you have HBO, I hope they take it off HBO and put it on PBS. Me and my friend Dana Ingram were talking about this the other day, but Black art, there's literally a documentary about Black visual art on HBO that was curated by Driscoll Douglas, and it's about 200 years of Black art. Watch it, because it does a very good job, even though it makes you want more. It's one of those things like, oh, I wish I had more information, but it talks about how museums, even when the few that were showing Black art, Black work, it was still being very curated. So you're still getting a very curated perspective of what, how much stuff is sitting in the basement, how much stuff is in people's art collections that you've never seen, of this person's work. It's important that we know, that we get our stories out there, that we know who we are, so we can get a more full perspective of the world that is Black.
Right. And especially going back to what both of you were talking about, the mosquito bites, like stuff that you wrote 11 years ago that wouldn't necessarily be curated, but then found its way into your work that is now. but that wasn't necessarily happening in the past, just to like tie it all together. Okay, so because this is barriers to entry with new work, do you feel that based on your identity, you have faced specific barriers with the new work that you've created? If so,
yeah.
what were some of those and how did you navigate around those? And if not, what do you think that was attributed to?
I've had, I'll do a speed round. An artistic director asked me to change the name of my play. And he's not a Black artistic director, and he doesn't understand what Chicken and Biscuits might mean on the inside because he was afraid of the stereotype. And the stereotype goes back to the mindset of the white audience. I didn't write that play for the white audience, right? So he didn't get to play, right? Right? That's like one example. And like, I'm not afraid to make people uncomfortable with my work. Not afraid to do that anymore because the blessings will flow. They're going to come where they're going to come. And if it don't come from you, it wasn't like you didn't understand it. So I think I'm getting out of the phase of compromise when it comes to what I want to say. And I'm taking notes on the feedback I get from people and why. Like, why that note? Like, we have the power. I think it's important to know that you have the power to ask questions when people give you feedback or try to adjust your work, because you want to make sure that it's being done for a true creative purpose and not a personal qualm or misunderstanding of the intention.
Confusion.
Yeah.
I think one must decide what getting their work produced is worth, for lack of a better word. What's it worth? You know, it's going to cost you something. So it's up to you what that thing is. Is it integrity? Is it, is it simply your feelings? Is it time? It's going to cost you something. So it's up to you to decide how, what you're willing to sacrifice in order to get the work seen outside of your vicinity. Also, what sucks about racism is that you can't prove it anymore. You can't prove racism like you could before. Like it has all these different names and, isms and schisms, and we aren't dealing with blatant no blacks allowed anymore. We're dealing, we're getting stuff like Law and Order. I'm saying right now, I just wrote a piece, and it starts it says pop the champagne, take the cork, then burn it, add water, apply concoction like makeup to make black faces darker, right? The client is like, "Oh, I don't know if we can talk about alcohol. Can we do something else?" And I'm like, "How do you expect me to get to cork without?" So is it really about the alcohol? Or is it about what I said after pop the champagne? Is it really about, because I'm not talking about drinking at all, and I have to have a call about that as soon as I get off of the Zoom. So like I had right before we started, it was like, "Hey, can you?" I'm like, "Nope." But it's what we're still dealing with. There's a thing that I need to say, and this is actually the only. They were literally champagne corks. They were champagne corks. Mm-hmm. So is it uncomfortable? Is that an uncomfortable conversation? And do I have to sacrifice the truth for your discomfort? And the question is, am I willing to budge? We're gonna find that out when I get out of this Zoom.
I've lost jobs. I've actually lost a premiere. And it wasn't racially specific, but it was a power dynamic where this man was like, "I'm commissioning you and you need to change this." And I was like, are we changing this out of fear, or are we changing this out of power? Because you asked for our voice. You wanted our interpretation of the story. You don't have to put it on your stage, but I'm not just going to take things because you're scared. That's not how this works. And we lost the premiere. The show is still gone on to do great things. So you know, what is that integrity? What are you willing to lose? And you don't always have to. You know, you don't have to lose. You can stand. It might not happen, but you know,
At
do you
that
feel
time.
good?
It might happen
At
some
that
other
time.
time.
Yeah, at that time. Yep. Yep.
So since we're kind of getting into this area, what are the differences in creating new work and being commissioned? You know, Douglas, for you, Daniel, you're like creating, you guys are different. You have different avenues, right? But you're both creating new things. What are the differences between working in a predominantly white institution, PWI, or a BIPOC organization or a Black organization? Do you feel, and do you think it's important for predominantly white institutions, organizations to change, or for BIPOC artists to build their own spaces if both of them must balance? I know that was like 4 questions in one, but it's 7:56. Just keeping it real. So you want me to repeat all 4? Pick one.
The answer is yes.
It's both. Then what's the balance? It's both. Then what's the balance?
I'm gonna say it's. Listen,
Or
we're
in
having 2
what balance?
conversations.
What
Yeah,
balance?
the question to the people is: do we want to run the theaters and own our stories and the way they're told? Is that what we're asking? Or is it we want more equity where the power is held, right? And I think for me personally, I don't know that I even want to be a part of the non-for-profit Broadway thing. I was able to create a commission during this time of this new play starring 2 Black women with 3 theaters, one in Savannah, Georgia, one in Los Angeles, and one in Queens. Neither of them are in the Broadway, off-Broadway elite, but they're all fabulous, and we're creating work, and I'm getting paid. So my mindset is I want to take the story to the people I want it to reach. That may not happen. And so we have to reconfigure our minds to understand what we want from the system. And when we make that decision, we'll know how to move through. But I'm not in the business of begging permission for something I feel like I've worked to own. I just have to find the people that want to do that work with me.
And that also means, sounds like redefining people have like success, like what does success look like?
Yeah.
I am successful when my play is at the Nederlander, or when my musical, you know what I'm saying, is at the Schubert, whatever. And it's what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say, is that success for me is when I get to tell the stories that I want to tell to the people I want to tell it to, produced in a way that I feel good and supported about.
That's and the money resides.
And the money resides. And there's funds there too, because ain't nobody working for free. I mean, unless you're beginning. If you're beginning and you're a new playwright, then like, yes.
Yeah.
For all the like high schoolers and college people out there. You heard these 2 gentlemen's bios. That's why they're like, you're gonna pay me.
Because it's time, you know.
I mean, Black people have been doing stuff for free for so long. Like, yeah. You know, it's like it's always encouraged for us to do stuff for free, or to feel, you know, to feel thankful when we're allowed to do something. And it's just like, nah, bruh, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. My mama was good. My granny was good. Like, whoever comes after me is gonna be good on that ideology. You know, I think it is both. Being able to define what success means for you. I don't, and I do both subscribe to when if I make something myself, if I got it out, I'm excited if I got something out. You know, because sometimes it's just hard to get something out sometimes, you know? So then that's just one, like, start small. Like, I just want to get it out. Okay, now that I've gotten it out, what's another goal for it? Can I get it produced somewhere? Okay, I got it produced somewhere. Whew, another goal. Cool. Can I get this on Netflix? You know, it's give yourself increments. Allow yourself, it always goes back to the process. Allow yourself the time to, you know, feel good and feel better about what you're doing. But I want us to really focus on ownership, understanding what that means, you know, owner in all of the facets, what that means, you know, and don't think of it in terms of capitalism, but ownership. Like, not even so much like how much money you can get from it. Just know that no one can take it away from you because you own it.
Yes.
It's your IP. That's important.
Yours.
So to everyone who's watching, your stories are your stories. Your stories are important when they're they matter, right? Mind them, write them down. You'll be coming back 11 years in in the future to come across something that you wrote down tonight, after watching this, after watching these interviews. You know, trust yourself, believe in yourself, and know that you can build. Know that you can define your own success.
And that your story matters. You just have to take it to people who understand it.
Right.
Because there's a different navigation of how our stories can go up. And sometimes a no over here might be worship over here. So there's not one lane to succeed. There really
Go
is.
get your nose. Go get those no's. Those no's are actually, rejection is protection. You go somewhere, it's like, nope, thank you. Say thank you for that no, because that means there's a better, your original idea, your thought of where you thought it should go, there's a better version.
Mm-hmm.
There's a better, don't go that way, go this way.
Yep.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. That is our time for the night. I appreciate you. Thank you all for tuning in, watching live, for all of you out there who are watching the recording. Gentlemen, do you want to throw your Instagram or your websites out? Give a little, plug.
Chocolate Hipster on the Insta, Douglas Sings on the Twitter, lionsandpackjar.com.
It's amazing. dwattswords@gmail.com and @dwattswords is everything. wattswords.com, no D on that one.
We hope that you all have a wonderful evening. We're going to finish out this interview, and then our educational coordinator is going to come on and let us know what's coming up for the next day. So thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us, Alexis. Good seeing you, Daniel.
So it is, you too, Adele. Always. Love you, Lex.
Much love. Bye.
Bye. All right, and now our educational coordinator, Saray Daniels, are you in the building? Are you here? All right, I'm gonna let you.
Hello, Alexis. Yes, I am.
Hello. It is your stage, my dear.
Thank you so much. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Saray Daniels, and I am the Arts Education Coordinator for the Obsidian Theatre Festival. I just wanted to give you all a reminder on our tomorrow's classes for the day. There are registration only, and we have already sent out info for those students. And we would like to let you know that your welcome guide can be seen and downloaded on our Facebook group. So you can go to the website, facebook.com, and go to our Facebook group, which is open, and you should be able to see, it's the very last post that has been posted. You'll be able to download the PDF for your work and preparation for tomorrow. And we want to make sure that you get an opportunity to write your own monologues, as Alexis has stated before. And even for those who have not or do not desire to write your own monologues, we ask that you please come prepared tomorrow with a 60 to 90-second monologue so that we can get to work and that we can get you guys on your way. Thank you so much, Alexis.
My pleasure. Thank you, Saray. All right, everybody. Thank you so much again for coming to the Obsidian Theatre Festival Sister City program inaugural day. We are thrilled to have you, whether you are watching us live or tuning in to this recorded on Facebook or on YouTube. We've got an exciting series ahead, 5 weeks culminating in our featured content. March 25th through 27th. For more details, please visit www.obsidianfest.org. We hope to see you tomorrow. Take care.